Hello, beautiful soul, and welcome to another episode of Intuitive Creators Spotlight. In this playlist, I invite intuitive creators who embraced all of who they are and now are on a journey to help other people connect with themselves and the world. Today, I have here with me the amazing Brian. He is a master storyteller, coach, and communication expert who brings both heart and humor to the complex world of neurodivergence. Hi, Brian. How are you today?
Hello again, Stella. Doing pretty good here, enjoying the weather in the central USA.
I'm super, super happy to have you here as my guest because I know the kind of work you've been doing in the world, and this episode will not be enough for us to talk about everything. And I know that our viewers will find your links and will know how to connect with you after this episode. So as we step into this conversation, I know that storytelling is one of the most powerful mediums for you in your work. Why do you feel this is important?
Well, it's something that comes naturally to me. Ever since I was a kid, I was drawn to stories. And in many ways, it's to show the process of how something is possible. Far too often, including myself, I was my own worst enemy as a kid. Very low self-esteem, a lot of negativity, because I had a lot of undiagnosed learning challenges. School was hard for me. Socializing was hard for me. My family didn't get me. So I would often develop stories in my mind about how I was Superman, how I was the superhero. I was the one everybody cheered for. And those stories really helped me just hang in there when it seemed like I was in by myself. And I felt like I was alone in the world a lot. But I didn't know that the alternative was any better.
Mm.
So I decided to hang in there. And I discovered acting at a young age. Acting is about telling a story through a character, doing your part to make the story unfold. And the fact that characters can inhabit different qualities. I could become a brave knight on the stage when in everyday life, no chance. I would hide in the corner and hope they didn't see me.
Mm.
And then I began working with clients, and they'd come to me with a story that was riddled with defeat and fear. And the stories that kept me going growing up were the ones about the superhero that had the weakness, but then they overcame it and they felt discouraged, all the things that you wouldn't think superheroes would feel. And anything to help my clients see themselves in characters who have done what they say they want to do.
Mm. That's
And so
so
they could draw parallels and they could say, well, maybe I can do that. And then help them with encouragement, with guidance to take baby steps so that they can create a story that they look at and say, yeah, I did that. It wasn't all roses, but I did that.
Do you often see your clients actually taking action when it comes to them creating the story, but then taking steps towards manifesting what they're visualizing?
Well, I absolutely see them taking steps. And what's really cool is when they come back to me and said, hey, I tried that thing we talked about, and this is what happened. And there are sometimes where I could just practically cry because of how well it went for them. And it may have been close to a year before they took that step,
Mm.
but I just kept believing in them. I didn't get impatient. I didn't say, come on, I told you 100 times. I would just say, okay, here we are now. What got in the way of taking action? What kind of supports do you need? What needs to happen for you to take action from here? So we start over.
Mm. And this is such a huge thing when somebody believes in you, sometimes before you believe in yourself, especially when you're at a young age or in a vulnerable position. and your clients finding you, they found a healing space that helped them grow and also feel loved at the same time. So would you say that patience is something that can be cultivated, or do you feel like you have it or you don't have it?
Well, I'm sure that there are people that their temperament naturally leans toward patience, but it can absolutely be learned. Case in point, because I was one of the most impatient people you'd ever meet. And my oldest son, still impatient, and we're working on it. He's better. But patience basically stems from being curious about the moment.
I love that.
What's happening here? Well, this is fascinating. Instead of thinking, this moment is not good enough, I'm waiting for an imaginary moment where something is going to happen that's going to give me a euphoria or make me feel successful or good enough. So you're putting off satisfaction.
Mm,
You know, another one of my mantras is that life does not move at the speed of impatience. So
wow.
you can fret and complain and whine. Things don't speed up. The line doesn't move any faster. Traffic doesn't move.
Mm,
So patience is about being present. What's my experience right here? Whatever is coming along next will come along in due time, time that I have no say in. But in the meantime, look at everything that's happening here. Feel this experience of this moment. And when I bring that to the session, and I've gotten better at this over the years, like any coach, is being able to create a space for them where I'm not hurrying them.
mm,
I'm not doing a lot of woulda, coulda, shoulda. It's all about them being present with not just what's happening in the moment, but what's happening within themselves. Are they feeling fear, insecurity? Is there a tightening in their belly when they think about doing something? There's something visceral that's saying, don't do that.
mm,
There's all the information they need about why something's working and why it isn't is in what their present experience is. And being patient is required in order to be able to just sit with that without thinking you're on the clock.
mm. Yes, because the more present we can be in every moment, the more knowledge we can get about that moment and about ourselves in that moment, because then we learn how we react, how we respond, how we communicate with the world around us. And we can only do that when we are fully present. And I absolutely love everything that you shared here, how you described the importance of being present in the moment. I know that you have worked on many amazing things, and I also know that you have a platform which is AuDHD. Okay, just
Right.
putting all the letters in my mind as I'm saying it. Can you talk to us about this platform? What does it stand for, and why did you choose to create it?
AuDHD, it's a combination of autism and ADHD. It basically means you're diagnosed with both.
Mm,
And there are often contradicting features. Like somebody with ADHD wants to be impulsive. One doesn't want to be, kind of can't help it because of the wiring. And then autism says, no, 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 no. I have to have a plan. I have to know what I'm going to do before I do it. So these two things are fighting each other. You may even be impulsive without making any kind of plan, and you scare yourself. What was I thinking? Why did I do that? And yet you don't know how to not do that. Another example might be if you're really, really bored and you need a lot of variety, you need to do something new, that's the ADHD. I need something new. Come on, I've been doing this forever. And yet, autism wants predictability, it wants sameness, it doesn't want things to change. So then you add, which one do I want? And they can really be at odds with each other. And what I've learned, because I diagnosed with both as well, is it's about striking the balance, finding the opposite sides of the coin. You have impulsivity on one side of the coin, and you have needing for structure on the other side. Where is the middle point where you feel the need that they're both really looking for is met,
Mm.
it's not necessarily going to be the same for either because we're dealing with a spectrum of challenges. My working memory is atrocious, where there are other people that whatever you tell them, they lock it away like a vault. And other parts in between. Somebody's working memory might be just right where it needs to be or right where the average is.
Mm.
And you make the necessary adjustments according to your unique profile so that you find the best fit with the world that you can. And the better the fit, the more fulfilled you are.
Mm. That's quite a lot of work to kind of do at a mind level. And then you have to create your own strategies within the strategies of being autistic and having ADHD at the same time. So those two things have their own strategies, and then you have to come up with your own within that.
That's why it's important to learn from your predecessors.
Mm-hmm.
When I first learned that my oldest son had autism, and then I learned about myself, one of the first things I did was go to find books.
Mm.
And what I was surprised and thrilled to see on the bookshelf were autobiographies. An adult woman who did it, a couple adult men who did it. And the validation that was in those pages, you know, I'm not nuts. Some of the stuff that I thought was abnormal was actually totally in alignment with autism. And I was able to connect with some of these people and they became mentors. And I grew so much just from knowing them. And they were generous. They would just lend me their ear and answer all my questions. And just connecting with the community was a wonderful experience because initially you feel alone because you don't have in your contact list all the people with autism. As until you're diagnosed, then you have a real long list of that. So finding people who have already walked the journey, or at least walked more than you, who can say it's going to be okay. This is doable.
Is that why you created your own platform?
Well, I created my own platform because when I saw how my boys were struggling and how the world responded negatively to them, I got this vision of if this world was more compassionate, I wouldn't have to worry about them being okay when I was no longer here. So I'm working to create a more compassionate world for my boys.
Mm.
And it's also going to help everybody else. And I do that through blogs, videos. I've written 7 books. I think I'm working on my 7th now, actually. And it's all about inviting people to step into a story where we can be human with each other, feel safe, feel vulnerable, not take advantage of one another, and grow together. Yes, it sounds very utopian, very pie in the sky, but it doesn't mean we can't get closer to that.
Mm.
And if we're closer to that, we're treating each other that much better. So hopefully I'll at least be able to plant some seeds that people want to say, I want to do something with this. And maybe they don't end up changing the world, but maybe they change their world. So there are at least pockets that are adapting this. We're in this together. Let's be compassionate instead of competitive.
I
And
to-
then bit by
mm.
bit, hopefully it'll grow.
I totally resonate with the fact that competition doesn't always bring out the best of us. Sometimes it's needed, like in sports, because otherwise probably those Olympic events wouldn't exist and yeah, all of that. But when it comes to competing, because we think somebody else has a better skill or whatever, stuff like that, I think it's a waste of time. Why would you do that when you just can come back to yourself and work with what you have? And I love the world that you are having the intention to create, because yes, maybe in our own lifetime we might not be able to do everything that we imagined we want to do, but at least if we will take a few steps forward, And if we will commit to our own personal journey of growth, I think this can create absolutely huge shifts around us and for our kids as well. And that's important. So talking about your children, I know you mentioned that once, like when you decided that you're going to look for help and you found help in books and then working with mentors, then you learned so much through your own experience. When it comes to you passing all this knowledge onto your children, and I know that you are raising 3 autistic sons, what do you feel you shared with them something different than everything that you found in a textbook, for example?
Well, the textbooks tend to be much more big picture.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm really adamant about with my boys is those teachable moments. Well, they're talking about something they believe in, and it's pure conjecture. And we'll stop them right there. Say, wait a minute, where's your evidence for that? And then they'll say, I don't have any. Okay, so what do you think it might be a good idea to do? I'm not telling him what to do. I'm asking him questions to see how well he understands what would be the process of validating my thinking instead of just assuming about everything. And if he doesn't have an answer, well, maybe suggest it to him. He doesn't always follow it up, but at least we are reinforcing to the boys, don't think it just because it makes sense to you or because it feels good, be able to back it up.
Mm.
And
You
our middle boy is always doing research. He sends us articles, he sends us videos. So he's picking it up. He's paying attention.
Mhm. You're encouraging them to come back to themselves and find multiple paths towards themselves. Like maybe someone would just learn through questions, another person would learn through doing a lot of research and talking through that. And I love that you are encouraging all of them to find their own ways towards themselves.
On top of that, a lot of the thinking with ADHD and autism is distorted because of the lenses we have on the world, very all or nothing, very emotionally reactive. So we can take the world as being a greater threat than it might be in reality. So it's important that you be able to be more discriminating about your own thinking. Now, is this being accurate or is this part of the symptom? Like I've worked very, very hard over the years to learn to manage my all or nothing thinking, which led to a lot of me being angry at people. You know, you betrayed me, you hate me, you know, you're a lousy friend. And just instead of just saying, you know, that was really disappointing. And I didn't have that. I just had one or the other. So when I started learning how to find the gray and how I could be okay with the gray, even if it was uncertain. Man, that's anti-autism wiring, uncertain. So the more I work with that, the more I kind of found the piece in the middle. I don't always, you know, I swing from one way or the other from time to time because that's the diagnosis. Skills don't cure, they make more navigable. So most of all, I hope that the boys learn from my modeling because I'm always falling and picking myself right back up. And if there's one skill they can learn, let it be that.
Mm.
Perseverance. Keep going. And I think they have actually, come to think of it. I think they have learned that.
They have a good mentor with them.
Thank goodness, because if there's anything I've spent my life doing, it's a lot of falling.
You know, being encouraged and loved, especially by your parent, because you are mentoring them, but you're also their parent, receiving all of that support and love, it must be and feel to them invaluable while dealing with autism and dealing with everything that you mentioned society was trying to reflect onto them. And I guess when somebody is going through something like this, trying to navigate this reality, trying to understand who they are, where do they even start from, this personal journey of growth while dealing with these symptoms. They might struggle a lot with self-acceptance, and they may think that they're too much or not enough, or this doesn't work, or this is not accepted. What kind of tips, or let's say one simple thing that you can share with somebody who deals with that, especially as a neurodivergent person, in a world where the society puts a lot of pressure, and then on top of that, they think about themselves that they're too much or too little or not enough? What kind of advice would you give them?
This phrase just popped into my head as you were talking. Don't compare, be aware. Because you want to be present with what's happening. You want to be a student of it as opposed to, oh, that person's so much smarter than me. That person's got a better education than me. They got a better job than me. They're better looking than me, whatever it is. Because we don't tend to compare in our best interest. We tend to compare to disqualify ourselves.
Mm.
But if you're not looking to compare, you're just curious. That's what the be aware is. You're just curious. It's not about you anymore. It's about you being immersed in the experience you're having. That whether that be of yourself, another person you just met, showing them how fascinating they truly are by how you respond to them. Because
Mm.
you're present instead of thinking, oh, I wouldn't say that. There's something else they could have done, or wow, what were they thinking? Like criticizing your story or criticizing what you're telling me as you're telling me that. Nope. Get rid of that voice and just immerse yourself in that person's story. Just back to being very present again.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it brings a lot of rich experiences for all of us as we are present with the experience that we're having in that moment, and also with conversations that we're having with people. And even like as we're talking now here today, as we are being present, we are both like learning and expressing and sharing. And this is beautiful because ever since very early ages, since from when humanity started on this planet, we learned through stories and storytelling. And I think this is so important, even with all of this of AI stuff, which is helping us so much. But human storytelling is continuing to be super, super important. So when you communicate with the world, Brian, and with your sons as well, um, there might be moments maybe where they might not express in words what's happening, right? And you have to be intuitive about that. How do you define this communication beyond words?
Often it's just presence, just sitting there with them and letting them know, hey, see something is bothering you. If you want to talk, here I am. Have to, you don't even have to tell me the whole story. Just say, I'm mad, I'm sad about something, but establish that the door is open. Maybe even check in a little bit later, let them know it's still open. Otherwise, especially kids with ADHD or autism, you might as well be on the other side of an ocean. It can be that difficult to reach out to you. But the
Mm-hmm.
more you keep letting them know, looks far, but I'm right here.
Mm-hmm.
And they may or may not reach out to you, but by continuing to do that, the time will likely come.
Mm-hmm. They know that the support is there, and when they're ready, they just come to you. That's beautiful because you're not uh, just coming into their space. You respect their space, you're understanding them, and then at the same time letting them know that you're there. So I know that you bring a lot of humor and emotional honesty into some very heavy topics. Has this always been this way? Has this always been your approach to life or to these kind of topics, or did it come from your life experience?
I grew up with humor. My father is hilarious. And many of us have picked up the sense of humor. Unfortunately, the humor I grew up with was very insulting. My dad and my brothers picked up the get a dig in whenever you can, so it was extremely hurtful. But I found other ways I could be humorous. I discovered clowning, being a clown, being silly, using my body, using my facial expressions, not necessarily having to talk, acting,
Mm.
comedic timing. I was introduced to Monty Python as a kid, and even stand-up comedians today, I listen closely to their rhythm, how they deliver a punchline. Because to me, verbal communication is like music. There's rhythm, there's flow, there's pauses, and I really get drawn into that. And humor is so powerful in how it can put a little balm on a wound.
Mm.
One thing I've become equipped better to do over the years, because I have a master's in social work and then 20 plus years of doing this in practice, of learning where the boundaries are, because you can't be too edgy. It has to be just right.
Mm.
Not a better word. But I use the humor when I know we're talking about something difficult, or one of my clients has shared something difficult and they're feeling a little raw.
Mm.
I might throw in a little quip so that they have a little giggle and then it feels lighter.
Mm.
So it's almost like stopping to take a drink of water along the journey.
It absolutely helps because it lifts up the spirit. And like you mentioned, this analogy of like stopping to have some water, it's just like refreshing it, and your energy is refreshing. And I know that people who have conversations with you, we've been in the same circles for a while, and I know that everybody who has conversations with you, they feel uplifted, they feel happy, they feel positive after they have conversations with you. And I think this is so super precious. And with this in mind, if you think about those who are neurodivergent and those who are neurodivergent and see their neurodivergency as a barrier and not a bridge in a relationship, what would you suggest to them?
One of the bigger challenges we have with society, and the schooling system is a big part to blame for this, is wanting to educate all kids to be average. Take the tests. You got to pass at a certain grade level. You're all studying the same things. You are being instructed to see the world in a particular way. And then, if you are more neurodivergent in the world, what I've learned is that your job isn't to be average or normal. Your best job is to be as human as possible. Because there are so many internal resources that we never use, because we're taught that only this sliver of us is acceptable. And that's the part that has to be front and center all the time. And usually it's a mirage, it's a mask. But the more human you are, you don't have to act, pretend. You get to know all of your emotions and the strength that comes with each one. You learn to unlock your creativity and your resourcefulness and that unique ability to problem solve that a lot of us have, that's just not present in a world where everybody has to follow the rules and be average.
Mm.
So the more you learn to get into that and turn over all of the leaves inside and find all the buried treasure, what you end up bringing to the table is something that happens. You happen when you show up. Like,
Mhm.
wow, what just happened here? Well, as opposed to, okay, I'm going to be quiet, I'm going to shake everybody's hand and make eye contact and do everything I'm supposed to be unmemorable.
Mm. And I guess it's such a beautiful thing to look at it from a perspective of I will allow the world to see my own beauty, my own true, genuine, authentic beauty. And as I'm talking about this, I remember years ago we were traveling in the Republic of Ireland, and we did like a big trip in the country, and we booked a lot of different locations through Airbnb. And we stayed with hosts because it was just me and my husband, and we wanted to absorb the entire experience of that place. And I remember we stopped at one of the locations, and there was this couple. I think they were in their 60s, something like that. They were very nice, smiley, and as soon as we stepped through their door, they said, the man said, "Look, I want you to know that I am autistic. Sorry, I am autistic. So just in case I say something, or I act in a particular way, just know that it is because of that." And I really, really admire that person for the fact that he said this up front, because from our perspective, imagine if we didn't know how to respond just in case he needed to do his own stuff. But he said it, and it was beautiful, because what followed after that was a magical experience, because on that exact day he was supposed to go to a dance lesson with his wife, and they invited us to go with them so that we can be part of that experience, because I guess they felt comfortable with us in that space. And it was such a beautiful, happy moment, because we went there and we saw them dancing Irish dances, and
Wow, that's
it
not easy.
yeah, and it was all because this person, and I can only imagine like what kind of like what he has been through, because he talked about a few things, what he has been through to accept himself, to be honest and open to the world and have the courage to do that. But then look, once he's done that, we were able to understand him, and he welcomed us into his world, and we so appreciated that so much, because as you see, even today I'm talking about that experience, because it was a magical, magical experience. And let me ask you now, in your own healing and personal growth, is there a moment that you remember as a surprising moment, something that really surprised you, or it was a lesson or a turning point for you that you didn't expect?
Man, that's a big question. Maybe a turning point that I didn't expect. Besides my son being diagnosed with autism, which totally made my life pivot, man, I can't nail it down to one. My own diagnosis of autism. I could say, and by and large in my life, things have never gone according to plan.
Mm,
I have specific goals that I thought, smooth sailing, nothing's going to divert me from this path. Then something life changing would happen and require me to change. So it also kind of makes me wonder just what's at play in the universe, because I didn't veer off path. I took hard rights, you know?
mm.
After high school, I had a plan, then I got cancer and I
Oh,
had to stop and go through chemo. So I had to change what I was doing then. Things were going really, really great in my professional life. Then my ex-wife left, things imploded, and I was really, really active. I had plans to tour the world presenting. Then my body started hurting and not
mm,
working well. And then I was diagnosed with a couple of chronic illnesses that basically have me bedridden. So a lot of those big changes has, I guess it's basically taught me that you may have plans and objectives, but also let life guide you.
mm,
And I say that very easily. It ain't easy,
mm,
because there's a lot of fighting and resistance and self-sabotage instead of incorporating the experiences you're having, not as something that is done to you or something that is even done for you. It's something that is just done. It's
mm.
part of the experience. And since the river is moving this way and you are part of the river, how do you adjust? As opposed to saying, I don't want to be a part of this. I don't like the way you're flowing.
Yeah.
And that is very learned. It is day-to-day practice, plenty of not getting it right. But how do you learn to do anything? You fall, you get back up, and you persevere. Because what else do you do with your time? You know, try a few times and spend the next 50 years bitching about how it didn't work? Or do you persist? Because again, what else do you do with your time?
Oh, that's such a good point. What else do you do with your time? You keep trying, you take it one day at a time. This is really important instead of like trying to always escape the reality, the present moment, and try to be somewhere else. And I'm super, super grateful that you're bringing this wisdom here into this episode. And to everyone who's watching us, please check out the description of this video to know how you can connect with Brian, to how to find all the books he created, his platform, his work. Please make sure you check out the description of this video. And as we're wrapping up this episode, I want to ask you one last question. What is something that you hope for the future of the neurodivergent community?
One thing I hope for the neurodivergent community: inclusion in a society that realizes we need to be in cooperation, not in competition, and that we are actively looking out for opportunities to include others. That's something I'm looking forward to.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Brian. And thank you to everyone who has watched this episode. If you're new to our channel, please subscribe, like this video, let us know your thoughts, and I can't wait to see you again next time. Thank you, Brian. Thanks for watching. Bye.